When a new idea for a YouTube video comes to mind, I never know exactly how I'm going to title it yet. But I've realized that the packaging of a title has a huge impact on all of the planning that you do afterwards. And it's actually better not to move on to the thumbnail, let alone the scripting phase, until you know exactly what that title will be. So I had this idea of trying to build a new AI workflow into my app that can help me come up with a title more quickly based on a video idea. So in this video, I'm going to share that workflow, how I built it into my app, and how you can come up with video titles more quickly using the same process. By the way, if you're new to the vlog, my name is Ricky. I'm building a content planning app and sharing all of my lessons learned here on this channel. All right, so getting right into it, this is the workflow that I like to design into my app. First, I'd like to just be able to pick up my phone and write out my video idea. This could be a short description or a long description. I basically just want to get the general concept of what the video would be so that I can feed it to my AI model and use it as context. And then in addition to that, there's a couple of other things that I need the model to know so that it can come up with the best title for me. The first thing I want it to know is the social platform that I'm actually creating content on. So for me, that's YouTube. YouTube's my primary. Secondly, I wanted to know the platform format for this piece of content. So am I making a YouTube video or a YouTube short? And the strategy for the title for both of those would probably be very different. Third, I wanted to know the creative format that the story is going to be structured in. So for example, if I were to create a vlog, there's a specific structure to that story versus a reaction video or a challenge video. That's good context because the model then can match that story format with the right title. The next thing I wanted to know is my ideal audience. So if you're like me, you create educational style content for a specific audience with a specific goal in mind, then you want the algorithm to serve your content directly to that person versus getting the most views and the most virality you can. And so lastly, I think it's good to tell the model like what your goal outcome is for this piece of content. For the ideal audience and for the goal outcome, that doesn't really change often. So what I like to do, because I'm using the foundation model in the iPhone, I've baked it into my prompt template. So every single time I make a new video idea, that comes in as context and it will prompt me with some kind of like a title. But if you were talking to your favorite AI model that doesn't necessarily remember or know those things, you could add it as context and it'll help you come up with titles that best serve your specific goals and your specific audience. So with all this context, what I thought would be cool is if my AI model also chose a title format that fits my video idea the best, and then have it actually generate 5 ideas that I could potentially use as a starting point, which is just like an immediate way for me to get my brain going. What I've realized after working with AI models is that they always need good examples. Unless the model's been trained with the latest and greatest title formats, it's not gonna suggest them to you. So yeah, for this reason, I've started collecting title formats whenever I see them. If you're really paying attention, you'll start to see patterns of what types of titles people are using and how they're phrasing things. So whenever I see one that I feel like is worth storing or I could use in some angle, some way, I make sure to write it down. And if I'm having trouble understanding what the format actually is, I'll feed it to an AI model and ask it to dissect it for me. Whether you're using AI or not, it's super helpful to just have a whole list of these title formats that you can pull from every time you sit down to make a new video. You're like, I have to take this concept, package it into a video that I want to post online. You have this ready to go. Title helps you clearly define what the goal of your video is going to be. So if you have that, it's a lot easier to move into the script and make sure that it actually delivers. So because I had that running list, I was able to just take that, pull it into Cursor, and ask Claude and Cursor to hard code the list into my app so that the AI model can actually see it and reference it. So in the app, I just designed this sheet that has every format in it and it's organized by category. And so if I want to play with a format myself without even asking the AI model, I can do that. I currently have a lot more tried and true popular formats in here than I do viral formats, but that's because I'm just recently learning how to start identifying those patterns. And so each of these cards includes a simple name for the format template itself. And I've got all the examples in there because when I first added this in, I realized that it was kind of hard to imagine my video idea in all of these templates. Like even though they were right there, like I didn't know which one to pick. But then once I included an example for each of the cards, it became a lot easier to say, okay, like I feel like my video could fit that vibe of that example. So that's the whole concept, but I still needed to build this workflow into the app. There was no way for me to like give the video idea or for it to actually like take that and do something with it. This is how I added my workflow to the app with AI. I have this custom compose button in my tab bar's search role. I know that's a lot of words, but this button is supposed to be used for search, but I see them swap it out in their apps all the time. Anyway, I created this simple context window component that allows me to describe my video idea, choose a platform format, and a creative format all up front. And this all appears when I click the compose button. But a nice little detail here is that when I change the social platform, the background color of the component changes to match. I'm mostly concerned with YouTube right now. So when I send in this video description, it sends me to my title and my thumbnail planner. And in the background, all of those details are sent over to the model so that it can generate a title for me. So in a previous video, I covered how I created this like title and thumbnail planner to help me compare different combinations of titles and thumbnails all on my phone so that I didn't have to do this whole process in Figma. So I've updated that original workflow to take in all of that context that I just fed it through that component, choose a title format from my list, and then populate the page with 5 potential title ideas in that specific format. And it's still all a little bit rough, but I'm able to choose a different format if I didn't like those ideas, and it auto regenerates those 5 for me. For me, as long as I'm collecting title formats that I genuinely believe would perform well, maybe it's a video I've clicked on before, I'm just seeing it everywhere, I'm seeing the patterns. Having that as a frame that I can just give the AI model, and then it takes my context and just like gives me some ideas for that, that's a huge time saver. And it's a perfect use case for AI because it's not ever going to give you the same answer over and over again. I don't ever expect it to be perfect. I just want it to speed up my process. So learning how to get better responses from an AI model is something that I'm definitely working on. So as I'm playing with this, I'm learning about a lot of the little hallucinations that happen. And my experience for the most part has been with the foundation model on the iPhone. Sometimes it'll just forget to add any content at all. They'll just be blank. Other times it'll say like literally verbatim like title 1 and then give me the title itself, or it'll number the titles for some reason. When if you look at the design, I really just want to see what the title would be with the thumbnail, how it would show up on YouTube. So those types of little details aren't necessarily needed. I've definitely had to add like a lot of little instructions like that to reduce the amount that it does those types of things. And even explicitly telling the model not to do something isn't always enough. Yeah, one of the realizations I'm making with prompt engineering so far is that you want to take your in real life workflows and break them up into these smaller subtasks that you can perform one by one with the model. And so if it's working on subtask number 1, you can have a prompt template for that. It gives you some kind of an output, and then you can take that output and feed it back into the model to do subtask number 2. And the biggest reason for this is that there's so much nuance when it comes to it trying to do steps 1 through 8 all at once. Like there's just so many things that it has to guess on, and the other side of it is that like models are very forgetful. So if it tries to do all these things all at once, it starts to forget things. So I'm kind of curious how I'm going to be able to do that in an iOS app. I'm sure there's an easy way. I just got to do a little bit of research. You're probably going to be using like OpenAI or Grok or Anthropic or any of these AI chat apps to do this. And one of the advantages you have is that you can use that AI model to do some type of research on the internet for popular title formats if you don't have a list built out already. But if you do have a list, you can just like provide that list as context for the rest of the things I'm about to mention. First, what is your video idea? If you're trying to become like an educational authority in a niche for your app or for your business, just try to make sure that it's a pain point topic of interest for whoever it is that you're trying to reach. 2, what platform are you targeting? 3, what's your platform format? 4, what's your creative format? 5, who is your ideal audience? And 6, what is your goal? So to just make this whole thing easy for you, I created a prompt template that you can take and copy over into whichever app you use. So if you're on your phone, take a second to take a screenshot or take a picture of your TV, however you're viewing this, and then copy that over to your favorite chatbot. Or if you'd like me to send it to you directly, just send me a DM on Instagram and I'd be happy to send it your way. Just let me know that you came from this video. I know I mentioned like the whole breaking things up into subtasks to get better results earlier, but you're only able to do that if you're building some kind of like an asynchronous app. So make sure you just provide all the context up front and it should come up with good results for you. But yeah, that covers my updates for this week. Let me know in the comments your thoughts about the workflow, the app, or anything you'd like to see from me in the future. Try my best to get back to everybody in the comments. So even if you want to just say, hey, maybe we'll see you in the next one. Bye.